Hey guys, Waifugate here. So today we'll be going over another deck guide, but this is sort of a mix between like a deck guide and a deck analysis. I personally haven't played this exact list yet, but I saw an article on MTGA Zone that kind of caught my interest, and I might be looking into crafting the rest of the cards for this list to test it on the ladder pretty soon. As you guys know, there's been a sort of like not a shakeup in the meta, but to where things got pretty interesting in the Red Bull qualifier tournament type thing this weekend. I partook in the tournament. I got like I went like 1-2 drop. I was playing Bant Yorion, which is why I'm looking at this list because I really like Bant Yorion and just Bant in general. The colors, I've always kind of liked it. Well, it has its weaknesses, like not being able to answer resolve planeswalkers as well as, let's say, Esper. Because, like, Esper, you've got, like, Eat to Extinction, you've got, like, if you're running 4-color control, you got Mythos of Nethroi, like, things that can blow up planeswalkers at instant speed, potentially, if there's not a Teferi. It's just a lot easier to deal with planeswalkers in those colors. Like, when you add black or you add a different color, like even red can shoot down a Teferi with Fry or Narset or something, and Bant just really lacks that. So getting back to the point here, I think you White Yorion took the tournament for Red Bull against Jeskai Luka, and I think that Bant probably has an advantage somewhere in this just because it ramps, and ramping is important. Being able to play above curve in this meta is just really, really good. So what's this deck doing that's different from, let's say, my list for Bant? Well, it has Cavalier of Thorns mainly, and it's running a whopping 40 lands. Honey, the dude that wrote this article, I'll include the article in my, and please ignore my tabs. I'll include the article in my description down below, so you guys can read up on this. And he goes over like the changes from Canister's list and everything else. Canister did pretty well too in the MFO, I think. I remember tuning into a winning matchup with him when I was casting, I think. But anyway, getting back to the point here, I'll include this, but his main point is that you're able to have consistency with like omens, growth spirals, everything else here. It does only have 2 neutralized main, which is a little shaky for me. I'd like to see more copies of this, at least one more. But, he has reasonings for, running 3 agents, 3 cavaliers. The main being that you have an 80 card pile and you don't have to worry about milling this guy out. It's very close to the same thing like Tamiyo's +1, basically. And then you're just looking to ramp up, and then... just try to capitalize on your opponent's misplays, capitalize on having more mana than them. Like, he really stresses, Honey does, that having the mana advantage allows you to just overtake the game. You're able to Agent of Treachery, maybe keep up a counter spell as well, like a Dispute for their agent, etc. And it's just a battle of resources, and you're allowed to agent their lands. That's usually the priority, he said, because if you grab like an ECD, their Teferi -3 can bounce back to their hand, etc. But he also mentions that if you have to, you can grab the 3rd chapter of ECD if there's just like no other choice. You can't ECD it or whatever. And he covers the sideboard options and stuff. So there's that. So, other than that, it's pretty much just like normal Yorion. We've got some cards in the sideboard, obviously, here. This is mostly set up for like Rakdos mono red because we're really weak to that game 1. 2 shatters for that reason. I personally prefer like at least 3 shatters main board because having the difference between having 2 and 3 in an 80 card deck is just insane. So I definitely say like, if you're losing to aggro a lot and you want to fix your matchup there, you could put 1 here and like trim something else, but I don't, honestly, the list is pretty tight. I might trim like 1 land to bring it down to 39, just because 40 seems like a lot. If I were to trim anything, it would be like that for a 3rd or 3rd here. Narsets are obviously good. especially since you're not running a ton of creatures, you won't really be whiffing on this too often. The reason why I don't like Narset though is because you're running 40 lands. Like hitting land pockets would just be abysmal with this. Like if I hit Narset like for 0, like 2 or 3 times in a row. I'm not saying in a row at like, this exact Narset does it, but like you minus Narset, say she dies, you play another Narset, you whiff, like that feels bad, even if her passive's really, really good. And it is a target for Yorion, but getting back to that, I think this deck is slightly not favored in the aggro matchup game 1, just in general because of the 2 shatters. If you want to strengthen that, of course, move 1 over there. Reclamation is probably tough game 1, but game 2 you've got vetoes, so that's pretty free. Like it's not free, but you're able to either stop Reclamation from ever coming down, or you can always just hold one of these for Expansion Explosion, and then Tamir can never get through, and you eventually resolve Teferi. Then the Reclamation doesn't become as big of a deal, and then you can start like agenting their stuff eventually. Like it's just pretty nice. I'd say against Jeskai Yorion, it's even. It's whoever like starts taking control permanents first, so it's going to be your ramp versus their cheese. Ramp versus cheese. Like, because, they just cheese out Agent of Treachery at 5, which is sort of like ramp, but different. Like, if it goes uninterrupted, it's better than ramp, but hopefully with vetoes and such, you can do okay. Plus, you have 4 disputes main board, so first game, maybe you get lucky with a dispute, you can just take the game 1. And then games 2 and 3, you've got, a 50-50 chance each time. So it's not too terrible. I say 50 because it's like pretty much even. Like after sideboarding, both of you have like vetoes and stuff. So it can get pretty interesting. What other matchups are there? There's like Kurega Fires, I guess, Jeskai and Gruul. 1 second. I can't tell if I'm going to sneeze or not. Sorry about that. Alright, so anyway. So Kurega Fires and Gruul Fires sort of fall into the same category. I think you need extra shatters versus both, and vetoes are kind of good versus both in a way. Unfortunately, we don't have any like Knights of Autumn or anything in our sideboard for Fires, but ECD is still really relevant in that matchup. And Cavalier of Thorns can just come down and wall them off, because they expect like, Questing Beast, and this is for Gruul Fires, like Questing Beast, what else? Like the Quartz Crasher, and the Cavalier of Flames. They all get walled off by this card, and they don't have a good answer for it. Like they just don't. So you're able to take that matchup pretty easily. Same thing with like Jeskai Fires. You're able to just kind of slam this down and they can't really go over it. And then like if they just play a critter, you can just ECD it, etc. Get their fires off the table. You can bounce fires with this. You get a lot of tempo, and you're ramping and doing more than one thing a turn. Obviously against Gruul, you can take out the disputes for anything that's useful in here. Probably Devout Decrees. The extra shatters are pretty easy. I don't think I'd bring in Tolsimir for that matchup. Tolsimir is more for like aggro. So, and then we've got like Tamir Reclamation, which we already kind of went over. I think it's slightly favored after sideboarding. So those are like the good and the bad matchups for the most part. The new Jund food, I think we would struggle a bit with, just like any control does almost. If that comes back, because right now the food decks are usually Rakdos, and we can outvalue them late game since like they forgo one or two of the strategies, which is like they either give up their 3 drops or they give up their 2 drops, and then you can kind of predict what they're going to do from there. So it's not too terrible. But I think the Jund food is going to be harder. We probably need like Knight of Autumns. Like we're probably going to have to shift up the sideboard a little bit. Like I might trim the Tolsimir down by 1. And maybe take out the Glass Casket potentially for 2 Knights. You do want consistency, and Devouts are going to be okay against Jund. Like always being able to remove the Mayhem Devil for 2 mana is pretty sweet. But we'll just have to see how popular that deck gets after the qualifier tournament and such. So, but yeah, this isn't like our typical deck guide video. This is sort of like a split between a deck analysis with the article. I felt like this was worth covering because I want to go into it. So we might see this during the week, me playing it at some point. I also want to cover soon this Esper hero list here from Sidetrack's stream, if you guys know him. He did pretty well with this list overall in the ladder. I think he got to like top like 200 or something with it. And we're supposed to do a co-stream soon. I was supposed to do one, what was it, Sunday, but I slept in, so you know, such is life. I felt kind of bad because he tagged me on Twitter for it, like, hey, we're gonna do a stream with WaifuGate later, and then I just didn't show up. I was sleeping. But yeah, so like this list looks really fun, and I'll probably slam this list on the ladder too. But yeah, so that being said, I'll link you guys to the article, which will have the deck and everything exported down below. And we'll be covering some more decks later on this week, probably more along the lines of actually covering gameplay and stuff too. So I appreciate you guys chilling out. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, always feel free to drop them in the comments below, or simply stop by my stream. I usually stream Tuesdays through Sundays, 2 a.m. until about 9 a.m., sometimes 10. Just depends on how we're feeling. But yeah, thank you again for chilling out. Cheers, and catch you next time.